So today we're going to be doing a review of the July uh 2023 2v2 tournament, a strategema that, as you can see, we ended up winning. My partner was Nub, this man, and yeah, it's pretty good, and I hope you learned something. Quick disclaimer, I've broken all three of the matches that we played into they're timestamped in the description so you can go around and I would recommend you could probably learn the most from game one, but I believe game two is the most interesting. Hope you enjoy. If you have any questions um, or any suggestions for future content, leave it down below. All right, today we're going to be going over the first game of the July 2023 Strategema tournament. It was a doubles tournament. It was a doubles tournament in which we ended up winning the whole thing. It was 3 rounds, and this is round one. So off the get-go, our strategy going into this tournament was to play passive, to build up econ and economy, and if there was a chance and opportunity to rush, we would consider rushing. But we were comfortable in our late game and out basically beating people through the use of orbitals and other like game technology. So we didn't want to play too aggressive. So looking at this spawn, there's a couple of things to know. So for one, my partner spawns right below me. So we're really close together. What this means is that it's going to be hard for opponents to isolate us if they rush us, making it easier to support if they were to go on the offensive. Second thing that we need to notice is we're on an island. So this plays into our strategy, right? Since inherently being on an island, it's harder to rush people because you have to build boats or planes to get over, which is not the weakest, which are not the strongest troops in the current meta. Because at this point, I believe the APCs, the armor patrol cars, were the best unit in the game, along with other like heavy tanks and stuff. So it's very machinery focused. So because we know that we're on this island and we know that we're going to be relatively safe, there's not going to be a large rush or anything that we really have to worry about. We're just going to go for a very greedy approach where we build up our cities, our farms, and then just prioritize research of plastic storage, then research refinement, and then we're going to be chilling. So here is where our partner and I decide to make a decision to deviate from our game plan. So our game plan was just to play for late game, but we know that our opponents are not the best this game, and we see that there's this large landmass across the river down there. So we actually have this opportunity to bring land troops over to that side of the map without using like the carriers, the boats that bring the settlers over. So we're going to build a bridge here coming up in a little bit to get over to that side of the map. Um, but before doing that, just gonna get the refinement, start on the deep drills, do a little bit of greeting. Yeah. So yeah, there we can see the bridge going down, and it's only actually 60 food and 60 plastic to get over there. This allows since it allows us to scout out the map, since we generally know that our opponents are probably going to be on this tile or this landmass, and if they're not, and there's the third plastic slick or the third plastic pool there, we can get access to the plastic pool, which provides such a large economic advantage, especially if we get in the early game. That will just like compound, and it's all compound, so you'll just get such a big econ lead to catapult you into the late game. Another interesting quirk of the game is that for every 2 players in the lobby, there's one additional like empty plastic pool. So in this lobby, I believe there are 2 plastic pools that there are to find, and my partner is about to find one up there in the north. Yeah. So we get the deep drills. After we get the deep drills, we're gonna go for the market. So yeah, there's the plastic slip that I talked about. I tried build a plastic refinery for him, but you can't do that, sadly. So yeah, we scouted out red, and red built a barracks because they see us, so they're a little bit concerned that we might be amassing an army, is what I believe my partner is doing right now. Since right now our game plan is to rush, and the way that we're gonna do it is that we don't want to fall behind in the economy department. So my partner right now is amassing a bunch of troops. They research manufacturing, and they're gonna go all out for an all-out assault on red. Versus I am right now gonna be greedy, build some frigates, and try to find those plastic slicks on the ocean. So yeah, as you can see, get the plastic slick. And I research aviation because I'm going for satellites, and the end goal is orbitals. Yeah, it is times 2 speed. It's a little slow though. This game was not that action packed. Grabbing everything, I believe I get a plastic slick. Missiles, just getting ahead in research, building up my cities, doing these small things like filling out the map, knowing where everything is, then and getting the frigate across the bridge. There's a lot that you have to do if you want to play optimally. So as you can see where my bridge was, my partner was sending in the APCs, and this is honestly probably the end of them, right? Because they don't have any offense, and if you just leave your opponents and don't apply any pressure, and you don't have those extra plastic slicks to out econ your opponent, you're just gonna either die it's gonna be a slow loss. And as you can see, the point total reflects that. Since red is keeping up, but blue, I don't know what blue is doing. So again, these opponents aren't the best. But what do you expect? It's the first round of the tournament. I'm gonna fast forward a bit. Researching radar, filling out more of the map. And I don't believe I covered it, but here, my partner, you can see it down there in the bottom right. It switches from red to yellow. So my partner is doing work. I'm kind of out of this game. If I had my partner's POV, I would show you it. But this entire game, I was pretty much just because red goes down, they're out of the game. There's nothing much to do. It's a 1v2 at this point. So we're going to end winning the game like that. Not a great first game, but the second game gets a lot more interesting, and I'll be covering that in the next video. Just kidding. The first game was so bad. We're going to be covering the second game of the series. So this is probably the toughest game yet. We're against two really, really strong opponents. And right off the bat, you see my location. I see that I'm surrounded by water in the top. I know that I'm most likely on an island. And my opponents are good. So this entire game, it's going to be a balance between basically keeping my opponent alive and keeping my teammate alive while making sure I maintain my economy and can get those satellites first. Since whoever gets satellites first in the game has such a large advantage, it's actually stupid because you can destroy your opponent's economy and then they can't get up satellites in the air. So right off the bat, I'm gonna be building my cities, building those 5 farms, getting that ahead, rushing that plastic refinement, and deep drilling to get that econ advantage up. So I'm confirmed on an island. We're gonna move ahead a bit. Just building farms, research university. the classics. I have a video up about like the most, like if you want to be very greedy, what the most optimal build order is for the first couple of cities. If you want to watch that, I believe it's like the most overpowered build build order and stratagem. So refinement. I can't see anything on the map, so I decide to build a naval dock, get some frigates out in the water, try to scout out the map, see if there's any plastic slicks for me to claim. And I don't believe I found any in like this my territory of the water, but I'm isolated, right? I have a giant lake that goes nowhere else between me and like the mainland, right? So what this basically means is that they can't attack me. I'm basically invincible this game. So it's gonna be so I have full reign to just full greed, but I gotta be careful. And throughout this game, my teammate needed some resources a couple of times, and I made sure to donate it to them since you can do a trade request where you can give them like 200 food for like as you see here, I give them 100 food and 100 plastic, and because of that, it's just a resource injection because right now they're fighting for their lives um inside of their base. I really wish I had their POV, but I sadly do not. But there's a lot of micro strategies that they're doing. So we zoom ahead a bit. Um, there's really nothing left to talk about until I get satellites and we open up this map and see what was going on. So just gonna fast forward, building up, as you can see, just rows and rows of cities. And another small thing about these cities is that these are placed like on the edges of the map to maximize the amount of cities that you can place like in an area because space is going to be my limiting constraint in the amount of cities I can build in the later game for the reason that it's my tiny island. And the other thing is that I also, throughout this entire game, am building markets and have markets set up to trade that excess plastic that you get from those deep drills into bonus cities or into bonus food to build for cities. So again, just another example of me giving my partner resource injection. So here comes satellites, and we can see my partner has kind of been doing work, right? They're in the top corner, and they have a nice portable, like fortified base set up with some walls, and they have a bunch of units, and then they get that plastic slick, which I lead them to because I unlock satellites. So now that they know that's there, we get that advantage. So now we just have a lot of industry, and if you compare us to our opponents, you can see yellow there. It's only about 5 cities, and red has 4, and green has 4, but I'm also sitting at a solid 5. But I have a large advantage on research. So it seems pretty close, but if you look at it, it's gonna get interesting. We're gonna fast forward a bit. Here. So my opponent, my teammates being attacked, and you can see it's a bunch of tanks and APCs. And I'm right now building a ballistic missile. So I land the ballistic missile, deal some damage to the red tanks, and this is just me trying to support my teammate from afar. So many of you might ask, like, oh, would it be worth it to build like some airplanes and going through with airplane support? And I don't believe that's optimal since right now my priority is getting that satellite up, because once when you get a satellite up, I believe it's every minute or so you get to drop or you get to get like an orbital down on your opponent, which can wipe out an entire army battalion and just get you so far ahead. So my partner is actually really, really insanely good at this game. Like they're holding up with all those strong tanks and units, and they managed to defend the push. So right now I am scouting out on my opponents, like where can I launch a satellite to deal massive amounts of damage on my opponents? Like what location can I land a satellite with its like it's not a 5x5, but like it's like a diamond shape. Where can I launch it to deal the most amount of damage to them as possible? Right now, when I'm scouting this out, I'm looking for deep drills. I'm looking for research storages. or like plastic storages, and I'm looking for troops. I'm looking to get maximum value to destroy the most things possible. So crafting up one of those satellites. And honestly, whoever gets satellites up first, most of the time just straight up wins the game. Because if you get 3 satellites up, your opponents cannot your opponents can send up satellites, but if you like double orbital their like space station or space center when they're trying to launch up a satellite, like it goes down to near zero, like the reliability and chances of getting up in the air. So whoever gets satellites first just honestly has such a massive advantage and generally wins the game. So my opponents here kind of went all in on trying to rush green with a ground invasion. If they killed green, it would have just been me alive and they probably could have clutched out a win. But since they didn't kill green and I'm allowed to get my satellites up and they're so far behind on their like orbital production, they just don't have that ability to slow down my econ. So as I can see, my orbital's almost ready, and I think I decide here I'm gonna launch it. So just look at this. Look at how much damage this is gonna do. And I'm also making ballistic missiles, and I believe I'm researching nukes on the side to also help just in case. So here I have my orbital out, and I can't. Yeah, I can't decide if I. Yeah, I do it here. Yeah, where am I gonna do? Okay, I decided to do it straight on their capital because it destroys their plastic refinery, plastic pump. Oh, and then that's a cool thing. If you do missile plus whatever, you can destroy their. Nope, I do not decide to do that. But I decide to hurt their. I think I destroy a deep drill or two, and then the refinery and their pump, all of that, just massive damage. Since for me, it was only that initial 800 plastic cost to send that in. But for them, they have to like, and that's forever, right? I get to reuse the satellite at a later date, and right versus they have to rebuild. So unless they kill that space station that has the satellite attached to it, they're never or that orbital attached to it. They're never gonna. They're just always gonna be losing the set amount of food and plastic of rebuilding their infrastructure. So here I research nukes, and uh getting ready to do some nukes since Armageddon. You get 6 Armageddon timers in a 4-person game. And if you can leverage that, you can leverage that to some big advantages and kill some big units to get an advantage. Okay, I'm gonna move on a little bit. Again, they rebuilt, as I said. And then I decide to orbital that, taking out the economy. It's just small things like that that you have to pay attention to. So here they're wait, go back. So they red decides to build a massive attack, and then yellow decides to drop a nuclear bomb on green's army. So right now we're kind of scared, right? So I launch a counteractive nuclear missile to kill green's army, or to kill some of red's army because green's army just kind of got decimated, and it's just trading like tit for tat nukes and orbitals at the units. But again, you can see my opponents don't have space stations up. They do not have those. They do not have the orbital bombardments up. So sure, they might be getting they might be building these nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles to swing like the ground troops temporarily, but they're on the clock, right? I'm gonna be constantly draining them like the drain game. With these 3 orbitals up every minute, I'm dropping 3 of those, and they're destroying massive amounts of farms, massive amounts of deep drills, and they're gonna have to replace that all. So their war effort, it's not sustainable. They need to do something about it. So they decide to sort of go all in with that attack, and it does not pan out. So if we fast forward a bit, to here, they have a massive army. Same thing. I'm just right now I'm doing my due diligence and I'm just making sure of two things. One, that they cannot get up their own orbitals. So I'm gonna have my satellites ready. Two, I'm gonna have my satellites ready on my opponent's space stations if they ever build one, so they can knock in an orbital in the sky. And two is on their missile silos, since I do not want them to get a nuclear weapon off. So here, I drop a nuke and destroy a bunch of Yellow's army, and then yeah, that's just an example. Two nukes actually, and I destroy all of Green's army. So that's just these are the things that you want to be doing as basically the support player. Since the Green right now, my partner is building all chain after chain. That's so many like two orbitals, two nukes. They can't do anything, right? I'm just chilling here on my corner of the map, having a large impact in the game, and they can't do anything because they let me free. So if we fast forward a bit, um, the game ends if we go back a bit. It might seem a bit too much. We win by Green getting into the capital, and then it's just more and more of the same, more orbitals, more nukes, all the cities, and yeah, they just take the capital, and that's victory. So if you want the takeaway from that game, it's if you're in a doubles game, if you're split up with your partner and you're the person in the safety, rush orbitals, get nukes, get ballistics, and try like basically use those global range things to impact the map, and then also be ready to send your teammate resources. And my teammate on their side, all that they had to do was survive until I get those orbitals up, where I can start hitting their econ, and then yeah. So I don't even think at the end of the game my partner had orbitals or nuclear weapons, since they just were focusing on units to rush and defense. So yeah. See you in the next bit. Okay, so this was the final game. It was kind of very unfortunate because one of our opponents had to leave in the middle of the game. And yeah, they had to leave in the middle of the game. So it ended up being a 2v1. And because they knew that they were gonna leave, we decided to do it on a different map, like a pre-gener not a randomly generated map, one of these preset maps. Um, and I spawned on my opponent's opposite side of my opponent. This game is not the best example of good gameplay, but it does show you like a different perspective, like what I'm trying to do when I rush or on defense. So I spawn away from my ally. I spawn on my own island with my enemy. So this is where things are gonna get interesting. So I decide to go for manufacturing and try to go on the offensive here. So again, you still want to make sure you have your two cities up because it's not sustainable to attack with only one city. But we'll see how it goes. So my opponent's doing the same thing, two cities, and yeah. I'm gonna go forward past the early game a bit. So 1 minute passed. Again, just building more research facilities, trying to get that machinery. So I got the machinery, and now I'm going for refinement. And I think I'm gonna be building a factory here in a second. Factory, blah blah blah. Building some units. So yeah, I'm going in with two ABCs, a heavy tank, and a scout car. And I'm just gonna be trying to attack like their they're building their own factory. So I'm trying to get their factory. And what's an interesting thing that the opponent here does is that they build the factory behind a plastic thing or a plastic storage, which is because like the units, the pathfinding and the targeting is weird. If you do that, you can delay and like control what units they attack. So I'm just building more units. And our opponent here does this strategy where you build a bunch of mini walls, like wall segments around the base. And what is interesting here is that because the way that the targeting works, my units are gonna choose and prioritize the wall segments over like the factory. So for like 10 plastic and 10 food, they just get like a massive HP chunk that they get to do whatever with. Actually kind of crazy. So you don't actually need to build walls to counter units. You just need to build a bunch of wall segments around. So this is one of the things that good players do. And yeah, at this point, my partner has just got to do whatever they want because red is AFK. And yeah, so they just have a bunch of resources. So at this point, I didn't necessarily need to rush. I could have just defended and I would have been good. But I decided, yeah, and just getting more units in. So green is kind of a lost cause here. They're doing a good job defending though, but at this point, wouldn't surprise me if they mentally given up. So, not the best game, not the best ending, but yeah, just more cities, more units, more combat. Yeah, it's kind of over for them. There's not really much to say about this last game. Um, so APC spam, probably the strongest unit in the game. Oh, missed the ballistic missile on all the units. Yeah, so my partner is actively sandwiching our opponents. So yeah, then we just overwhelm them. So you can see on the left side that their cities are inflamed on that side for my partner. And yeah, they can't do anything. So that's, yeah, and then we take the base. And yeah, that's the end of the game. So that's how we won the tournament. And yeah, it was a fun time. I'm excited to play more tournaments, duo tournaments, and I hope more people get into the competitive scene since there's some official tournaments hosted every once in a while. And there's some cool rewards. Like I get the golden skin. It's amazing. So yeah. Um hope you enjoyed and more strategema content to come.